In this video I will show you 7 alternatives to lead white and I will put them through a series of tests. In my painting technique I often use white paint to work directly into wet glaze. This creates fine, soft transitions and atmospheric depths, just like we see in the old masters' work. Traditionally, artists like Rembrandt or Leonardo da Vinci used lead whites for this, but lead white is highly toxic. It's also hard to find these days here in Europe. For example, it can only be sold for restoration of historical works. Modern whites like titanium white and zinc white are often not optimal for this technique. Titanium white has extreme opacity. It looks often chalky and overpowering. Zinc white is more transparent, but it tends to be brittle. It can crack after some years and is also very cool in color temperature. That is why I tested 7 alternatives to lead white to see what manufacturers offer today. As a reference for comparison, I am using 2 control paints, a standard titanium white from Schminke Norma and a genuine lead white from Blockx. First, I apply each color straight from the tube over a black and mid-gray strip. The first paint is in Blockx Flake White, which is a genuine lead white. I have to mention that this tube is a bit older and unlike most other oil paints, lead white tends to get a bit stiff or dry over the years. It is a quite neutral white and not as creamy colored as, for example, Old Holland Kremnitz white. Next is Michael Harding Warm White, which is sold as a lead white replacement. It's in titanium white with a touch of yellow ochre to give the color some warmth. You can clearly see here that the opacity is higher than the genuine lead white. Next is the Gamblin Flake White replacement. This is also a PW6 pigment, so titanium white. The opacity is slightly lower than the Harding but still decent. Here we have a Schminke Norma Flake White Hue, a titanium white with added zinc white. It is nice and creamy and the opacity is comparable to Gamblin. Now a Winsor & Newton Flake White Hue, again a titanium white with added zinc. A relatively soft paint with a medium opacity. This one is Lefranc & Bourgeois Flake White Hue, a titanium white with added zinc white. It is a bit more transparent than the previous paints, roughly similar to the lead white from Blockx. Whether that is due a higher amount of zinc white I cannot judge without a chemical analysis. Next follows Blockx Silver White Imitation. Since zinc white PW4 is listed before titanium white PW6 on the tube, it likely contains more zinc than titanium. It spreads very softly and it seems to be the most transparent so far. Now comes a white that is a bit of an outlier, Charles Lysopone White from France. Lysopone PW5 is a pigment made of zinc sulfate and barium sulfate. It does not have the tendency to crack like zinc white, and interestingly, it has a refractive index close to lead white. I would consider this a bit as a secret tip. Finally, a standard titanium white from Schminke Norma. It is a creamy white with a good opacity, and I apply it here as a control for comparison. Now it comes to the most important test for my technique. How does the paint behave in a wet glaze? I prepared the glaze using raw umber, yellow ochre and a little scarlet red, thinned with Gamblin solvent-free medium. I work the white directly into it. I am looking for how smoothly it blends and to see if it looks chalky. The original lead white can be worked in wonderfully gently and with a great control as expected. I have to load quite a bit paint onto the brush to get it to lighten the area. I can already say up front, no one of the tested paints give me quite this level of control for this specific technique. The painting feel of lead white is also very unique. I'm a bit disappointed with the Michael Harding warm white for this specific purpose. I use it for other things, but as a lead white replacement, as Harding calls it, it's not an option for me here. It behaves like titanium white and the mixture becomes unpleasantly chalky. Next, the Gamblin Flake white replacement, which I personally like to use. For a titanium white, it handles very smoothly and is easy to control. Some people say it turns to yellow. I haven't really noticed that yet, but I don't use it pure. However, this is true. The rim of paint that dries on the tube is distinctly yellower than with other white paints. I also really enjoy using the Schminke Flake White Hue. As you can see, it can be worked in almost like the lead white. If you load more paint onto the brush, you can tell it's titanium, but overall the forks of Schminke have created a great replacement. Then follows Winsor & Newton Flake White Hue. The opacity is low, but it's hard to control for this purpose. I feel you can really notice the higher zinc content here. The Lefranc Bourgeois Flake White Hue is very similar to the Winsor & Newton, perhaps a tick more towards Zinc White behavior. The Blockx Silver White imitation goes in the same direction. I find the higher zinc content makes the paint harder to control. Edges and brush marks tend to remain visible more quickly. Now the Charles Lithophone White. This feels great, and I have to confess, I like it a lot, and it's a favorite. Good control, no chalky effect, it just works. I discovered it not too long time ago, and I have been using it regularly as a lead white replacement ever since. And finally, the titanium white from Schminke Norma, and it behaves exactly as expected. Here are all the results again, hopefully without too much glare. Of course, you cannot see the subtleties as well on video as you can see sitting right in front of it. But that is why I try to tell you exactly what I see and how it feels. Here you can see a table showing the drying time in days for each paint. In the glaze, all paints were touch dry after 1 or 2 days. However, the results were quite different when applied directly. As expected, the lead white dried very quickly in 1 day, while the Winsor & Newton white was still not dry after a week. An important factor for the old masters was consistency. We distinguish between short paint like butter and long paint like honey. Traditional stack lead white could pull long threads, so-called ropes or strings. This allowed for textures like we see here in Rembrandt's work. I will test with a palette knife to see if the alternatives can imitate this behavior. Schminke Norma Titanium White. It's more short and buttery. Michael Harding Warm White. It's short. Schminke Flake White Hue. It's the only stringy paint in my test. Gamblin Flake White Replacement. I cannot create a string. Winsor Newton Flake White Hue. It's short. Blockx Silver White Imitation. It's also short. Lefranc Bourgeois Flake White Hue. Short. Charles Lisopone White. This paint had a slightly different consistency. It's somewhat grainy and creamy, but it's almost ready to be used for proper strings. And now the Flake White. Note that it's an industrial paint and not a stacklet white. It's not really stringy. I try to pimp it a bit with linseed oil. No real honey effect. So, I hope this comparison helps you choose your white. My personal winners are the Schminke Flake White Replacement and the Gamblin Flake White Replacement. Both are good all-rounders, but my special favorite for the glazing techniques is currently Lisopone White. It has a low refractive index similar to lead white. This means it does not cover as brutally as titanium white. Instead, in thin layers, it keeps that glowing, pearly shimmer which is perfect for the Velatura technique.